My name is Franklin Kalk. I'm 60 years old. I live in Austin, Texas. I took Warfarin for 6 months about 3 years ago. I had a blood clot, probably due to heavy travel. There were no other complicating symptoms, or at least that was what we surmised at the time.
Now, when you say you had a blood clot, that, to anyone who hasn't had a blood clot before, that sounds kind of serious. Is that serious?
It is, and it was kind of an interesting, I'll tell you the long version, right? It started out, in retrospect, probably for several months. I had some developing issues, but didn't really know it at the time. But looking back after I discovered it, it became pretty clear that I had, it had these symptoms. I didn't really know anything about blood clots. I have to say, I wasn't educated about them at all. I'm a little better educated now, of course, but at the time I really didn't know anything. Once the pain moved from my calf to my groin, I kind of, figured out, oh, wait a minute, this isn't just a muscle pull. And it's really tender. I couldn't touch it without it being pretty painful. So,
Wow.
that was a little bit, muscle pulls don't really feel that way. Well, a muscle pull, if you really massage, maybe, okay. But just, light touch, I could feel it. So it was something different.
After you had the heparin treatment and you were able to sort of bust up the initial clot,
Right.
the warfarin was prescribed to essentially prevent clots from forming for a
Correct.
period of time in the future.
Right.
Now, is this a pill that you had to take every day? Well, first off, is it a pill, and is
It's
it
a
something
pill.
you had to take every day?
Right, it's a pill, you take it every day. I'm trying to I can't remember exactly whether I actually took more than one in a day to ramp up to some level or not. I don't remember, but it took about 2 weeks to determine that I was stable on it, that my clotting factors were at a normal level and not varying a lot, because that's one of the things they look for. So I had to get blood tests twice a week for 2 weeks, and then every week after that. But it's a pill, and long term, over 6 months, I took it once a day.
And so obviously, I guess the concern is, since the warfarin itself modulates the clotting factors and how
Right.
effective and efficient they work for you, that too much warfarin could be a bad thing then.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So when your doctor prescribed this for you, what were the considerations that went into, did he have lots of special instructions for you? Did he try to get a lot of information from you? Did you have to modify anything in your life
Right.
to accommodate the dosing?
Yes, all of the above. He gave me some they weren't super detailed, but fairly detailed instructions. Once I discovered and had verified at the doctor that I had a clot, and that I was, because these shots will remind you if nothing else. Because compared to the shots, the warfarin itself was not really a big deal for me in terms of the ingestion.
Sure.
More or less cursorily went over the instructions with me rather than go through them word by word, because he knew I had read them and had begun to educate myself. And I was lucky because my personal physician was also my next door neighbor. So he knew my lifestyle and knew that I was going to be, pretty diligent about understanding this, this condition.
Well, what were some of the special exceptions? We know that vitamin K is
Right.
really important, rather the amounts of vitamin K, because vitamin K is an essential component for clotting.
Right.
So did you have to alter your diet, or did you have to pay special attention to it?
Yes. So before, and this is another interesting sort of predetermining factor, I think, not just the travel, but I ate a lot of leafy green vegetables, those are really the main sources in our normal diet of vitamin K. For example, iceberg lettuce doesn't have much, but romaine does, right? Kale has an enormous amount. Spinach, I love spinach. I ate a lot of spinach before that. So I had to cut back, and I didn't eliminate them from my diet, but I cut way back. And I did control very carefully the intake. So I knew exactly how much I was taking each day. There were some things I totally eliminated from my diet, for example, avocados. And the reason for that is avocados, you can have two avocados that look the same, but yet one will have very little vitamin K and the other can have an enormous amount per unit weight. So the variability was just, it's something that, you know, you would just imagine, well, I'm not going to eat those then, right? Because I don't want to inject that kind of variability into my diet. In fact, when I had the weekly blood test, one thing I noticed right away was that the bleeding did not stop. Just a little pinprick in the finger is what was needed to get the blood test taken. So, you know, you can usually just do this with your fingers for 2-3 minutes and then the blood will stop, right? But it would take 30 minutes or more.
Wow.
Because, you know, we were trying to keep my blood relatively thin. The other lifestyle change for me was I like to drive cars fast at the racetrack. And I couldn't do that anymore because of the concern about blunt force trauma. Any kind of accident, you know, if you have a bad bruise, you could, you know, potentially bleed to death if your blood doesn't clot well. So, you know, that's the kind of thing that, you know, really was a big change for me. For me personally, I stopped traveling for about 6 to 8 weeks. And then after that, I remember still the first aircraft I got on. I was fidgeting, and it was Austin to Dallas, you know, literally a 35-minute flight. And then I went Dallas to Milwaukee, so maybe an hour, right? Not very far. I was fidgeting the whole time, just trying to keep my blood flowing. I mean, it really changes your attitude. I mean, for me, it was my first glimpse of mortality, I think, right? So, I mean, that was a big deal. And I think also, you know, just having to go through a dietary change for the first time in my life and strictly control my diet. You know, my attitude had always been, I'll eat as much as I want, anything I want, I'll just exercise to keep my weight, you know, where I want it. It wasn't like that anymore. Mm-hmm. So that was a big change. And, you know, it was a big change for my family because now all of a sudden, if they were going to have kale or spinach, right, I wasn't. So it was almost like we had to cook for 2 different diets. Mm-hmm. Right. So, I mean, and just things like that. I mean, that was part of it. But I think also there was probably some worry, you know, from the other family members about, you know, is dad okay or is my husband okay, right? Well, when I read about warfarin, I thought, you know, a couple things. It's almost like aspirin. It was discovered quite a while ago, early in the last century, maybe 1930s or 20s. It's amazing that such an effective drug has not really had yet a replacement that works kind of for everybody. You know what I mean? That was interesting to me. Because it has been used really for other purposes than treating blood clots before that, at first I thought, I'm not sure I want to put this in my body, but it really wasn't all that bad. The actual ingestion of the drug itself, I really felt nothing, and you know, I felt perfectly normal. So that was good, and I think you know, don't fear, right? On the other hand, for me, I stabilized rapidly, and you know, my clotting factor levels in my blood stayed very constant over time. Maybe that was just discipline. So my advice would be follow a diet. You know, be really strict about your diet. That doesn't mean, you know, deprive yourself, but be consistent with it, mm-hmm, so that your body is being presented with the same chemistry from nutrition. I mean, I think that's really important.